my God. Early fixture, boys. In very few hours. Football on, right? That's what I'm told.
That's right.
Before that, though, the classical pre-game adventure of exploring the history of the Royal Rumble. A familiar tale. Everyone does it. There's a lot of parties going on around the States right now in which they do this. This is like a thing. It's a tradition, I promise. Deciding the decade, back again. Here cover the Royal Rumble. We've done Survivor Series and SummerSlam, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a couple months we'll probably do that. We'll finish the big four block. But this is what I'm looking forward to because everyone, everything's debated in wrestling, but there's one thing that everyone agrees is the Royal Rumble is like the fun, right? In theory, let me be clear. In theory, the Royal Rumble is really fun. As a concept, everyone's for the Rumble. In some of the execution in recent years, you get what you get, I suppose. But nonetheless, fired up to go through the history of the event. Bobby, how are you today, mate?
I'm excited, man. I've always enjoyed the Rumble more than any other WWE show, which makes last year's adventure pretty hilarious. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, excited, man. Love the Rumble. Cody's back this week, so things are good.
I appreciate you getting the getting the kind of elephant in the room out of the way there, because that was a difficult moment for you, and we'll get into it here.
Yeah.
Not for long, but we'll get into it. Pretty shortly, actually, we'll get into it. So, there's a hook for you folks. The Oracle of Wrestling. How are you today?
I'm well.
Yes.
How are y'all?
Very good, mate.
Good.
Very, very good. Football on later, Oracle.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A lot of big games tonight.
Yeah.
Well, all the American ones are playing, aren't they?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
from what I understand, Tope Suicida's team is going to get their ass kicked next weekend. That's
The Eagles.
Yeah, they're gonna
Fly.
Yeah, that's what I hear. There's no confirmation there.
Okay, fair. So, folks, if you've not seen this before, you can go back and watch the other ones. But basically, we take the three complete decades, right? 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and we compare those. At the end, we rank them. But more than that, we kind of just take a journey through the event's history. We compare, we pick best matches for each decade. Tonight, we're going to do things a little bit differently because for each decade, I want us to have both a best Rumble match and also a best non-Rumble match at the Rumble, because they do feel like different things in some ways.
Yeah.
Before we get into kind of the process, though, I do want us to kind of set the stage the way we did last time. Bob, I'll start with you. Kind of broad memories of the Rumble and what it's meant to your fandom and like just your general relationship with the concept as a whole.
Yeah, like I said, I always enjoy it because even when, the rest of the card's not good, you're going to get some pops in the actual Rumble. And, it's one that kind of the casual fans come together and watch too. And it's always a lot of fun. Actually got me back into wrestling because I realized the 2011 Rumble was on and I'm like, whatever, I'll just watch it. And it ended up being very bad, but they kept me around until Rock came back and then the Punk stuff happened and now I'm still here. So I have a special place in my heart for the Rumble.
That was very nice, wasn't it? Hear that, Oracle? We have the 2011 Rumble to blame for Bobby's tweets. What are the chances? Oracle, what about you, mate? Your kind of fandom, your relationship with the Rumble within that and memories and such.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
I think my thing was being mean to me again.
Seems like you're back now.
Okay. I became a fan because of the Royal Rumble 2000. My parents were watching that. I was kicked out of the room when Mae Young exposed her breasts on a live pay-per-view. And I was able to come back in to see Rikishi do his thing in the Rumble and dominate. And he quickly became one of my favorites. And I remember the Too Cold dance right there in the middle of the Rumble. Became a fan for life. Rumble is my favorite WWE pay-per-view every year. It is also the only pay-per-view I've ever seen over the years where random people will come over and watch that don't even watch wrestling and find some enjoyment out of it.
Gonna just put on the screen without reading, so people know what the fuck we're laughing at. That's an incredible takeaway from the story Oracle just told us. I respect it, Tope.
But yeah, it's basically, it's the only pay-per-view I've ever seen over the years where random people will show up, because it's the one pay-per-view people who are either lapsed fans or don't watch anymore, or simply whatever you want to define as casual, or don't watch wrestling at all, will occasionally show up to my place or wherever and watch it. So yeah, I mean it's the most exciting pay-per-view WWE produces every year. Lots of classic moments and classic matches, and even classic undercard matches it has, specifically in the last probably 15 years or so. So absolutely one of the best pay-per-views out there, and my favorite pay-per-view ever, for sure.
I think that's a common kind of a common take, right? Is like the Rumble is my favorite WWE, WWF thing, WWF pay-per-view concept. Bob, would you say if you like polled 100 wrestling fans, asked their favorite thing about the WWE year, am I wrong, Bob, in saying that it feels like this would be a lot to win that? Like everyone agrees on the concept of the Rumble, if nothing else, like what it can be.
Yeah,
it seems like it's a unanimous thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an interesting one for me. Like there's the Rumble in recent years. A lot of my wrestling memories based on like the way the way that I've covered it in recent years, and the Rumble has been a hilarious journey in those few years, right? Like there's been some incredible adventures in recent years. There are a couple at the start of my personal covering of wrestling and such. Again, covering is a strong word, but you get what I mean. That were like really good, and doing this process actually reminded me that they were really good, because I think some of them, unfortunately, some of the good ones in recent years have been kind of grouped together in favor of talking about how bad some of them have been.
Yeah.
There's a couple that we'll get into. Joe just brought one up in the chat, which we'll get to in more detail later, but there's been some really good ones. The Rumble has been really interesting in recent years because of the addition of the Women's Rumble, right? And like what that's meant for the show. And we've had some really interesting experiences with the layout of a show in that regard. You have 2 hour-long matches to fit into a show, and it's like, we'll get into it more later, but there's one, I want to say 2019 was 2019 when AJ and Brian had their like match dead silence.
Yes.
There's nothing to. And like that was an example of that format is challenging, right? You have 2 Rumble matches to get on a show, and often I think we've kind of seen the second Rumble match suffer from having to follow another Rumble match, whether it's good or bad. It's just a hard thing to do. And again, we'll get into it more, but it's an increasingly challenging match because everyone knows all the tropes, and there was a few there where the kind of rivalry between the promotion and the fan base came to the fore at the Rumble. But ultimately, it's something we all look forward to, and we all kind of enjoy the anticipation of, even if sometimes the reality has kind of been disappointing as of late. But I'm excited. This is kicking off our Rumble week. Obviously, it's coming Saturday, so let's get into it. First thing, kind of just to speak to what we were just talking about there, about the popularity of this concept. There are only 3 Royal Rumble events that have under a 5 on cage match. Only 3, and then like, for a WWE event that's been going for over 30 years, that's pretty good going. Like that kind of speaks to how even Rumbles that suck, generally people have fun watching these shows. Generally, I want to stress again, poor Bob, but generally people have fun watching these shows. So you haven't got many that are like complete stinkers, and as Don't Have an Answer says, I think Bob is aware of which one of those 3 will be. Nonetheless, quickly before we get into this, I want to shout out JR, who's resubscribing with us now for 8 months, as has our friend Joe, who many often will just in the middle of talking to me say, Joe, I think, and I'll be very confused, but Joe's great. I've watched some matches of him in the Discord before, and he's a good brother. So thanks to both of them. We appreciate you guys. Been with us for far too long, but thank you. Thanks for sticking with us for this long. All right, let's get into it. Let's start as we usually do with the kind of spare parts, the 80s and the 2020s, right? And we'll kind of then we'll focus on the complete decades. Start with the 80s here. 1988, the original, the first Royal Rumble. This was on the USA Network, right? This was like this is kind of an outlier, the first one. Of course, Jim Duggan taking it. I would argue though this is most like known in wrestling kind of nerd culture for the Jumping Bomb Angels match. Or is that that's true? Like if that to me feels like the case.
That's probably true. The Rumble match itself would lose only 20 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also not good.
Of course.
But yeah, the Jumping Bomb Angels match is definitely the match that I think is most talked about from that one.
Yeah. Bobby, any memories of the original, the first Royal Rumble event?
No, I watched it a couple weeks ago. It's not very good. That match is good. There's like a 20-minute segment where Dino Bravo tries to like break a bench press record, and it just no one cares and just keeps going. Yeah, kind of before they had like the built-in WrestleMania stipulation, they didn't really know what they were doing with these.
What year does that come in? The step?
93.
93. Okay. Yeah, and there is definitely a line to be drawn there. And that's a good point. 89, we have a kind of similarly forgettable outing. Big John
30?
Studd takes on.
There is a, and I can't remember. It starts later, but what's the year where DiBiase gets pay somebody to come in at 30, and then the next year he has to start at 1?
I think it's 90 where he comes in 30, and then
okay, so that's 90s. Okay.
Yeah, that's beast.
That's an incredible angle. It's awesome.
89, I looked at because I've seen all of these. This is one of the few WWF history things that I've like actually watched. And I remember Studd winning the 89 one, and that is the only thing when I look back at this show that was like, yeah, that was the thing I've seen. I remember nothing else from 1989 Royal Rumble. Bob, do you have any memories? Anything stand out?
No, again, it's another one that I watched a couple weeks ago, but even in doing that, no.
Yeah. Well, here we go. Never mind, because 89 is the start of what you just mentioned with Ted Oracle. So I guess there's a memory from 89. Anything else that comes to mind when thinking back to on?
Not really.
No. It's, the concept is very much bare bones. It's like there's been kind of a formula that's come over time, right? A recipe that's come over time. And as we go through this, I think you're going to see when they nail that. Here, it's like just pure raw ingredients.
It's 92.
I agree. Well, I think they perfect it in we'll get into it. But 92 is obviously.
Yeah, 92 is when the Rumble becomes a legend, I think.
Yeah.
Legendary. Sort of.
I would agree. And I think there's one particular piece of it that makes it especially so like memorable, right? Because of kind of circumstance. And again, we'll get to that. Right, let's jump ahead now to the other Luke kind of spare decade here. We're only a few years into it, 2020s. Now, this is interesting. 2020 is actually just outside Cage Match's top 10 Rumble shows. And I'm not surprised by this because I have fond memories of this show, especially the main event. This is 6 weeks before we headed to the PC for a bit and then the Thunderdome more extensively. It's weird, but the thing I always remember about this show is this was the day Kobe died, right? This was and that was really. I remember that in the hours leading up to the show, being a weird kind of cloud, I guess. I don't know the best way to describe it. But I remember that, right, Bob? Like online, that was like it brought weird tints to things.
Yeah. No, I was in Houston for it. The first one I went to, and that just kind of hung over the entire day.
It's bizarre. I had forgotten the Roman Corbin opener, which granted does go forever. The Women's Rumble, Alexa and Bianca start, and they have that really strong stretch.
Yes.
I think it's kind of good until that ends and Charlotte enters, because then it becomes it gets quite bad. This, of course, also is a collector's item, as it features the only legitimately very good Fiend match.
Yep.
Becky and Asuka is on here, which I don't think is as good as the year before, but is good. And then the main event, which is I think one of the best Rumble matches ever, with Brock Central. We'll get to Bob's victory lap regarding Brock in a minute, but Oracle, are you surprised to see? I mean, just outside the top 10 is not bad, but I kind of think this Rumble deserved a little bit better than not being in the top 10 when it's Oracle. What do you think?
It's tough to say. I'd have to go through everything. But the men's Rumble was outstanding for sure. It wasn't so much that as someone who hates Brock, not as a worker, but as just his presence in wrestling.
Yeah.
It was frustrating to watch, but at the same time, it worked because they sort of. I think they were aware of that.
Yeah, it was very simple.
So you sort of do it in sort of two different ways, like from a kayfabe and from a this goes around all the time point. I mean, that was kind of the whole build of the match. So when he got eliminated and they did it so well, it was done just so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to say. I'd have to really think about it, but it's certainly a top 10 contender. I mean, there's no question about it.
And we praised the women's Rumble's first half, and it kind of fell apart. But in the men's one, you have the Brock thing central in the first half, and then there's good stuff scattered from. I mean, Edge is returned in the second half, right? Which is like, I don't think any of us are ever going to kind of professionally be big Edge fans, but that's one of the great Rumble moments. That's an incredible reaction.
Yes.
Bob, this feels like it would be your favorite Rumble if I was just to guess, based exclusively on the amount of Brock we get. But this is a masterpiece, isn't it? A modern fed masterpiece.
No, I really like how they laid it out. They had a couple easy guys at first, and then I know New Day came out. Ray came out. They had Shelton in there. They had Shinsuke in there, which is funny because their stuff in Japan.
It was also it was MVP's return to the promotion.
Yes.
He would stick, right? Paul Lee would keep him around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, they have Drew come out and eliminate Brock, and Brock just took an incredible bump for him there. And then, clear all that out, and it's time for Edge. And they really laid it out well. And that's something that they struggled with last year in particular. We'll see how they do it this year. But that one was really mapped out very well.
It was a transformative piece of business for Drew, right? I mean, Drew was kind of on the precipice of this, and Paul Lee really simplified his booking. And I remember him doing like a squash over Hawkins and Ryder. Remember that was the thing? He did like a handicap squash or some shit on them. And like, you kind of realize, Paul Lee's going to just make him an ass kicker. And it developed. You guys said, well, Drew might have a shot here. And then, I mean, he came out of this looking like a superstar. Whether they quite stuck that landing, I think a lot of that's unfortunately circumstance didn't help, right? Certainly. I mean, winning it in an empty PC is not quite winning it in front of the stadium. But that's
Willie makes a point. And I don't know how much Pat had his hands on Rumbles this late in his life, but it was the last Rumble where Pat would have any sort of
any presence. Yeah, it's interesting. I actually think I want to say, which is in great contrast to what happened last year, I think Shane may have got credited for some of the agenting for that match. Do you remember that, Bob?
Yeah, it was like Shane and Brock and Heyman did a good amount of it too. Like Jamie Noble.
Everyone knows I think Shane's a wrestler, but as like a wrestling mind, he might be the most fascinating person because I have no read on whether or not like he's a complete buffoon or like a kind of under the radar genius. I don't know. Abyss in there too. Thank you, Dave, for that. Yeah, 2020 is a good show. There's a lot here. All right, let's get to 2021 now. We're in the Thunderdome for this one. This is less popular, but still has a positive rating overall. The Women's Rumble got good reviews on this one. This is the one where kind of Rhea and Bianca were the main characters and closed it out in big, grand fashion. Roman and Kevin Owens tore it up until poor Paulie had
couldn't do it with the handcuffs.
The old sweaty finger syndrome. You know what I mean, bro? It is what it is. I get it. Edge won the Rumble. Little kind of note on this because it popped me very much. The Edge Rumble, I think, has like a 6 on Cage Match or something, like a 6.5. And Dave give it 4.25, which is like peak Dave Edgeness. It's just incredible bit he does there.
I don't like that Rumble that much. It's not terrible. Christian's returning rules. But that's the best women's Rumble, which is not even that good, by the way.
Yeah.
The first women's Rumble was great. The second one, and we'll get to it with Becky at the end, that's great. The rest of them are not good, but this is the best. 2021 is the best of those ones.
Yeah. It's a shame I didn't have a crowd because I think the consensus was they were the better Rumble that year, right? Yeah. Bob, anything from? I know you said earlier like you don't have particularly detailed memories of Thunderdome and such, but anything kind of just overall?
No, I mean it was cool. Like the Rhea and Bianca spots. That's when they finished like on the apron, right? And they were fighting out there, and that's
I believe so. Yeah,
that was cool. And the last man standing match was very cool, and like Christian coming back was cool as well. Those are really the things I remember. It definitely would have been, I think, better off with the crowd, but not much you could do about that.
Yeah, I'd forgotten this. Both Edge and Bianca went Iron Man. I'd forgotten that. Yeah, that's interesting. Edge was first in. Is that what I didn't remember this?
I think so.
That Rumble's kind of. I remember him being taken out of the match in the middle, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He was,
and he returned and threw one out at the end. Yeah. And of course, that led to a whole interesting Mania situation. But nonetheless, 2021 is somewhat forgettable. It was at the Thunderdome. I think we begrudge anyone for that. It is what it is, right? It sucks. That's a really tough situation. 2022. All right, Bob, let's get this out of the way, mate. A 1.91 for the main event of this show, 4.47 for the women's Rumble. The only highlight of the show is Seth and Roman, which ends with a DQ.
Which I actually like.
Yes.
I like the finish. I like the match. Seth had him kind of overwhelmed, and Roman just choked him out. It was fine.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all the other stuff. Like, I don't really remember much of the middle of it. I know Maurice and Miz had a tag with Edge and Beth. Becky faced Doudrop, but like the sign was on fire, so we were.
Hold up. Just pause. I mean this with love, truly. There are very few matches they have booked for a Big Four show in like recent memory that are as insane as Becky and Doudrop.
Yeah.
I have immense respect for Doudrop as a professional wrestler. I have
Good worker.
Yeah, I have no. It's not her. Becky was a heel.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow they plucked this match. I have no idea. And I remember us talking about the time, like, why is this the match? The crowd had no idea what to do with it.
Yeah.
It was so. I mean, again, I don't want to dwell on that, Bob, because I understand the sign and this was not the biggest issue with the show. But what the fuck? Why was that the match?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was part of the problem. If you sit anywhere higher than the floor, they shine lights right in your eyes for 4 hours, so that got a little annoying. And then the actual rumbles themselves, like, kind of just boring. Especially the women's one, they clearly only had like 13 women on the roster at that point, so they had to bring in like everybody.
Yeah.
And then even the Ronda thing, I'm like, it's exciting, it's cool, she's back, and then she just kind of stood in the ring and was just another person for the 10 minutes or whatever until she won, because I guess they didn't want to do the same thing in both Rumbles where 30 just comes in and clears the ring. But I mean, you could probably change it up a little bit. Even Brock and Lashley wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, because Lashley got hurt immediately. And then the men's Rumble, like the first 20 people or whatever, it's all just like lower mid-card guys. Like I think Sheamus is the first like big name guy that comes in.
Do you remember the entrance music? That was when we realized the entrance music had hit like just completely fallen off, because everyone was like, "Who the fuck is everyone?"
You know what this was? This was a result of all those cuts.
Yeah, and this is when we saw it in action.
We saw the cuts in action and saw how bad it did, what it did to the roster. This is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Who won the men's rumble? I can't even remember who won it.
Brock came in at the end after he lost to Bobby, and then
Brock won it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He came in at 30 and just threw everyone out. He did it in such like nothing fashion too.
That was the other thing too. Like that's why I just didn't care. Like,
and then didn't he then do the same thing in
the chamber?
In the chamber, yeah.
The next month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember he had the chamber. He just beat everyone.
Oh yeah, and he like broke the thing with Theory in it. Yeah.
We haven't talked about yet. One of the big stories of the chamber last year was Shane McMahon, who had one of the more inspired performances in wrestling history. We'll never, ever forget Kevin Owens super kicking him directly in the chest and him just like doing a stagger cell and throwing him out.
Yeah.
All-time insane moment. There are, of course, many stories that came with that, but yeah, quite the performance.
Back to the women's rumble real quick. Charlotte eliminated Rhea and Bianca. Everyone needs to remember that.
All right, good. I'm glad you reminded me of that.
No.
And last year was when Sasha had the really weird deal, right? Where she's like in it for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, she's like hurt, and then she opened it, and then she got thrown out in like 8 minutes.
What the fuck?
It's bad.
Awful. One of the worst ever. Has to be. I mean, clearly it is.
Well,
1.91 for the main event is crazy, man. Good lord.
I'm not so worried about this year, but I don't know. Next year by this time might be that bad again, depending on who's in charge.
It's concerning, certainly. It is amazing. We did a review of last year's Rumble. We were all, this is the worst. It's amazing how positive the WrestleMania was, but by contrast, just mere months later, WrestleMania was great last year. The Rumble was catastrophic.
And all right, let's spring. Okay, it's the summer that was getting really bad, even before the allegations.
Mm-hmm. Let's kind of tie up those loose ends. So the 80s. Which Rumble do you think is better in the 80s? 89 or 88? Just 89 because it's the actual.
89.
Yeah. What's the best non-Rumble match in the 80s? The Jumping Bomb Angels deal?
It probably is.
I don't even know what 89 would have as like a contender. I think it's the best non-Rumble match of the 80s Rumbles. Only 2 of them again, of course. So, 2020s, the best Rumble match in the 2020s thus far.
Men's 20.
Yeah.
Men's 20. I would agree. What have we got in terms of the best non-Rumble match at one of these Rumbles? So we got, I think the leading contenders would be, I think Roman and Owens is up there. I'm gonna be honest. I think on pure like achievement level, difficulty scale, I think the Fiend versus Bryan Danielson may like legitimately be what my pick is, because I remember watching that match and being like legitimately into it, and it was this is not Bray Wyatt. Let's be clear, this is the Fiend, bro.
Yeah,
that's list me the next best Fiend match. Like seriously, I mean that was a fucking
the first Danielson match from a few months earlier.
Exactly. That was a Herculean effort. I think that might be my pick. I don't know. What do we think, Oracle? What do you think is the best non-Rumble match at a Rumble in the 2020s thus far?
I mean, it probably is. It's probably Roman and KO.
Yeah.
Even with the stupid finish.
Probably so.
But yeah, I mean, that's probably it.
It feels like the mature pick, Bob.
Yeah, I think so.
Taking the adult pick,
because it's one of those matches where, like, even though there's no fans, they made it interesting because they brawl all around the.
That feud was great, man. The ladder match they had at
the golf
TLC
cart spot was completely insane too.
Yes, yeah. I remember the TLC match. That
was
finish
great too.
Yeah, that was like red hot.
The cage match a few weeks before
cage match ruled.
Incredible.
I think their match next week's gonna be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Was the cage match on Christmas? Was that?
It was, yeah.
Great program. I actually remember thinking I remember thinking they should really consider just giving KO a little run with it. And I understand now in hindsight he was going to hold it for another 4 years, so fuck it, But like, he was red hot that time. So yeah, KO's the man. Roman, same thing. So, all right, let's now get to the main kind of bulk of the show here. The complete decade to start the 90s, of course. The top 3 Royal Rumble events of the 90s. Here we go, boys. In the 1 seed, we have 1992, which I think is no surprise to anyone. It is, however, 4th all time. There are 3 Rumbles that are actually rated higher than this on Cage Match, which is interesting. Now, again, let me stress, not Rumble matches, Rumble events, which I guess is maybe the key decider there. I think this is second in terms of Rumble matches or close to it. I'd say like that. Let's get into it. You can't talk about the Royal Rumble events about 1992. An iconic main event. Oracle, you kind of alluded to this, is when, this match like kind of transformed in history. Flair is central to that, right? Just the novelty of having him in one of these, but him putting in a classic Flair performance. There's a lot here. Oracle, talk to us about 1992, the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, it's the Royal Rumble match that created the legend. It's even now still the best Rumble match of all time, I think. Just from everything all together in terms of history and it's not just Flair. It's not making the run from 3 and on. It's the most star-studded Royal Rumble in history.
Yeah,
they say this shit every year. No, man, this is like
it's like a collection of a whole era of wrestling too, right? Because all the territory stars, yeah.
Everybody from the the mid to late 80s to the early 90s are all in it. And Flair survives every single one of them. He's the NWA Crockett guy coming in and surviving all of the Rock and wrestling and post WrestleMania 3 stars and it's I don't know, it's you can't beat it. The funny thing is I don't really know much or remember much about the undercard, but I don't think it matters.
It has the you remember the opener with New Foundation against Run Express? Yeah, that's like the only positive. One with positive review, but yeah, it's about the Rumble. Absolutely.
I think the Piper wins the IC title on that show, right?
Yes, I believe so, against Mountie, right?
Yeah, and that's a good moment. The match is like, but like the moment's cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, but yeah, it's and Heenan's performance on commentary is just
timer.
I mean, Corey Graves wishes he could be as anywhere near that. But
yeah. The Flair Piper moment is like all-time great moment, right? Like his sell of the music, and it's like it's incredible.
there's the one negative moment where Randy Savage eliminates himself,
peak Savage.
and he's not supposed to.
The announcer's sell of that is amazing too. You have to be eliminated. You can't eliminate yourself. Bobby, I know everyone's talked about this Rumble a million times over, right? Like it is what it is. But just anything to add on an iconic, not even Rumble, just an iconic WWF moment, iconic wrestling moment.
Yeah, you guys nailed it. And like the commentary is the reason that I think it's easy to go back and keep revisiting this, because it really is just excellent work from both of them. Just incredible piece of business. And I understand why it's number one, because it's one that definitely sticks out as far as the Rumble match itself goes.
Now, I do think one of the reasons it may not be the top event ever is there is a big time miss on the card, which is of course the infamous Beverly Brothers versus Bushwhackers match, which goes 15 minutes and has a rating of 0.74 on Cage Match. I would assume that's part of why it's lower than some of the ones we'll get to later overall. Again, Rumble match I think is second. It's incredible. It's a wonderful encapsulation of the good of that era. Special.
What Rumble match would be ahead of it?
Indeed, very interesting. We'll get there, folks. We'll get there.
Yeah, I can think of two that are one that's close, but
yeah.
Then there's a third one that I can think of that I don't even think is close, but it is great. But we'll get to it.
In the 2 seed for the 90s is 13th overall. We have 1991. This has another Orient Express opener against the Rockers, which is a pretty famous match.
Great match.
One of the more famous Rockers matches actually in the Fed, right? I think it's fair to say, in terms of notoriety. But there's not much here, really. I'm not, believe it or not, folks, I'm not a great proponent of the Slaughter Warrior match. And the Rumble's like, there's not a lot here. I think it says a lot about the decade this is in the 2 seed, to be honest with you. I think this is not a particularly impressive Rumble from my vantage point. Bob, do you have a contrasting viewpoint on that?
No, not really. Like, it's cool. This is the one where Dustin and Dusty got the tag, though, so that was cool.
True.
I guess
that's great.
True. That's fun, actually. That's a good call. Yeah.
But yeah, the Rumble itself, not really. This is the first one Hogan wins, right? Yeah,
I think so. Second. He wins 92, right? Yeah, he wins 92. Yeah. 92.
Oh, yeah.
Not number 92. My bad. He wins 90 also, I should say.
Yes,
my apologies. Yeah, it's fine. Oracle, what do you think? You're a proponent of this one?
This show is rated so highly because of the undercard and the famous things. Slaughter winning the title. Him. He's got Saddam Hussein's boots that he personally gave him.
Indeed.
Sherry Martel offers to give Ultimate Warrior a blowjob at one point. I'm not kidding. That's actually a thing that happens on the.
Looks me. I believe it. Take your word for it.
It's alluded to, but it's not. I mean, it's
not said quite that. Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, but and then of course the finish of the Warrior Slaughter match is hilarious because Savage comes out and because somebody showed a clip on it I can't remember when it was, but Savage comes out and picks up like a camera light and throws it on the Warrior and falls and then leaves.
God bless.
It's incredible. I mean, the undercard's very famous. The Rumble match is pretty good, but it's not
it's fine, yeah. Solid.
It's not as good as some of the 5 or 6 best or so.
Okay. In at 3 for the 90s, we have 1995, which is 20th overall. This is, of course, the shortest Rumble, right? This is one that comes in 40 minutes. Not even 40 minutes, I don't think. Diesel and Brett, I think, is an amazing match. And because of the finish and the fact that their Survivor Series kind of sequel gets so much love, I think this Rumble match genuinely deserves more credit than it gets. I think it's an awesome match. Pretty bold match in terms of booking too, right? That's pretty wild matchmaking in hindsight. But the Rumble match doesn't do much for me. And That's really all you got. And again, it's third for the 90s, but it's 20th overall. Oracle, is it fair to say that as great as 92 was, I think the thing that stands out at the 90s is they're kind of it's very much the concept. The execution is not nailed yet, or beyond that particular year we singled out, right? Like they're kind of they're steady generally, but very seldom do they rise beyond that.
Yeah. They don't really, they don't really start to hit it. I always thought they started to hit it out of the park when they got to the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a long stretch there for about 5 or 6 years where it was, they were doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the occasional flub would occur,
Indeed.
But like I used to get 95 from like Hollywood Video and Blockbuster when I was a kid, and I don't like the Brett Diesel much as you do. Like that match is like I always thought it was like as I got older, I when I was a kid I thought it was boring. Okay, when I was a kid. Now that like when I got like a teenager, I thought it was good but not great. There are people who actually hate that match.
I'm sure it's long too, right? It's like nearly half an hour. But, I really like it.
I do like it. But the rest of the show is like, and that Rumble match, it's bold because everybody comes out like every fucking 50 seconds or something.
Yeah.
I think it's like 1 minute, but like it's more like every 50 to 70 seconds people are coming out. So like, because they're trying to get, through it's like 39 minutes, right? Like,
yeah, I think so.
It's the shortest Rumble ever. It's like
bizarre.
It's like it's not even. It's only a few minutes longer than Cena Punk from Money to Make 2011 or whatever. So it's like,
and it has no rhythm because of that, right?
No, like, yeah. It's just Sean and Davey Boy kind of carrying the load the whole time, and it's like, I don't know, man. I've never been a big fan of that show, personally.
Me either. I mean, again, it's worth noting that while it's third here, it's 20th overall. So I think that's the consensus. Yeah. Bob, anything on 95?
No, it's fine. The problem with the Rumble is it's just like they don't have any star power at that point. Just 95 is such a bad year for them, and they're just kind of reeling. And Diesel and Brett are already tied up elsewhere. So I mean, you got Sean, and that's honestly about it.
It's interesting. We kind of touched on it here. Like, it's kind of fun how the Rumble can be an indication of star power at any given moment, right? It's kind of like a neat thing that you kind of stumble into when you talk about these. Like, if you talk about the good ones, you go, man, this roster was great. And then you get to that one, as you said, Bob, and it's like 95, there's not really a lot of star power. Last year's Rumble, there certainly wasn't a lot of star power. And that's kind of an interesting indicator. I think even when we get to the kind of mid-2010s, the best ones are when the roster was really packed, It's not everything, but it definitely feels like a factor. Okay, let's move to the bottom three now for the 90s. The worst Royal Rumble of the 90s is 1999 with the infamous tagline of "No Chance in Hell." This is the fourth worst Rumble of all time, according to our friends at Cage Match. Of course, the best way to kind of catch people on this is the Vince Rumble, right? And that's kind of your mileage may vary. This is this is an interesting time in the WWF, and popularity's sky high commercially. Things rock and rolling critically. Things are always a little bit less consistent. The match is such a backdrop to what they want to achieve with the Vince stuff. It's like it just isn't for me. The most famous match on the show though is Mankind and Rock. I would assume the I Quit match, which was kind of made even more like famous because of the Beyond the Mat deal, right? And like everything that came with that. And it's a brutal watch, but it's a really strong match all the same.
It's a great match, man.
Yeah, it really is. But I think this one comes in bottom for the 90s because of the Rumble itself, I would assume, Bob, right? Would you agree?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's too much else on the card other than Rock Mankind either, but like I imagine the Rumble's a lot of the rating there.
Oracle, how do you feel about that Rumble with Vince coming out on top?
It's so ridiculous. Like, there's the part that always I remember is like Mabel Viscera gets kidnapped by the Ministry.
Oh yeah,
and then gets turned into Viscera, and then Kane gets like taken out by like people in white suits to the asylum right in the middle of the match. It's just like. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go out.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking. Look, man, like we did Survivor Series. We talked about the magnum opus, right? As you fellas, and I understand. I disagree with you, but that was we talked about that term, right? Like magnum opus for Vince Russo, Survivor Series '98. It's like 2 months later here in Gotham City. He can't be trusted, man. It's inevitable. He's going to do some shit like this. But again, the Rock Mankind match is an all time. But I think it's fair to say that none of us are surprised this is bottom for the decade, right?
No.
I wanted to quickly check where this came in terms of like the actual match itself, and I believe I'm looking here. This was third bottom all time in terms of the Rumble match itself. This is the third worst ever according to Cage Match, which I think that tracks. In at 2, second worst Rumble of the 90s is 1996. It's a few spots up overall. A pretty middling Rumble match and a divisive, I think it's fair to say, Brett Undertaker title match, right? I think probably the best way to sum up the show. I can't say that my memories of it this is a complete stinker, but I think it's just kind of there. Oracle, anything on those? I know because we talked about it recently, right?
Yeah. We talked about it early last summer.
Yeah, I think so.
Not a great show by any means. The Rumble match was really middling. I think that's probably the best description of it. Brett Taker, I remember hating it. I think it was just boring, piss boring. Yeah. Like I think we talked about that on the show.
I believe so.
It was just boring, man. Like it was just, it didn't do anything for me. And I see people think, I've seen people say they like it.
Yeah.
That match does not do anything for me.
Yeah.
But I don't even remember what else was on that show. I think Goldust and Razor was on there, which actually wasn't bad. But yeah, just like Vader was in the Rumble, which was neat, but I don't know. There wasn't enough. Austin that was his first Rumble as well. But there wasn't enough spark to that show. The whole thing was basically Shawn's coming back and is going to be on his run to be, the top guy. So, not much of a show.
Bob, anything on 96, mate?
No, not really. Just kind of another Rumble that didn't have a ton of star power, except for Shawn and Vader, and they kind of suffered for it.
Indeed. In at 3, third worst Rumble of the 90s. One spot up from 96 overall. We have 1990. Actually, a popular Rumble match. Got positive reviews of the Rumble match. Hogan, I think he throws perfect out.
That
right?
Florida crowd goes nuts.
Yeah.
The whole Rumble. That Rumble is great.
I think the reason this is in this section is purely because there's just nothing.
There's nothing on the undercard. Yeah.
Nothing there. I think though when you look at the 90s overall, to me it's a story of like there's one clear standout high, there's one clear standout low, and the rest are all. I think you can lump them together and not be too far wrong. Like I think because this one, I actually think the 90 Rumble is one of the better Rumbles of the 90s. The match itself. But the rest of the undercard sucks. But it's like a lot of the undercards suck, man. Like, like
the 90 Rumble match is outstanding. Yeah, it really.
Yeah, I really like it. Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see this in the bottom 3, to be honest with you, even with the weak undercard, because the Rumble match itself is so strong. But I don't know. Anything on 90 boys before we wrap up the decade?
No, I don't think so.
Nothing really, just a great Rumble match that everybody should see. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's the first Rumble match where they really start to figure it out. 92 is where they perfected it, but or at least perfected it for one year until about 10 years later when they start. But
I think it's in the top half of Rumbles overall. The actual match itself, again, the event is lower, but yeah, it's interesting. The 90s is kind of an interesting decade to look back on in hindsight because I think there's a lot of love for like the idea of the Rumble matches back then, the nostalgia that comes from the look and the superstars involved. But in reality, I don't think it was anything more than steady for the most part. It's kind of just touching a few other matches here that came up throughout the decade. In terms of Rumble matches, I think the 97 Rumble needs to be mentioned, right? Like I think Austin's
incredible on that.
Yeah, famous performance for Austin.
Sitting there and looking at his watch. That's when he first does it and waiting for Brett to come out. Yeah.
Which has become like a full-on meme now.
The way it looks in the Alamo Dome, it's awesome. It looks awesome.
I honestly like that Rumble. I would.
It's a fun match.
I'm personally,
Sean and Sid is good.
I like it. Yeah.
I like Sean and Sid's a legitimately good match. Like Survivor Series '96 is fun, but it's not really quite as it's not really like. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Sean Sid '96 a good bit, like a lot, but it's not
an atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an atmosphere match. The Rumble '97 match is a good match.
I personally think I'm kind of surprised that Rumble is not like at least above the '95 Rumble overall. I'm personally surprised, but whatever. Other ones to mention from the decade. I think we need to give a shout out to Brett and Razor, which is a match that isn't like critically acclaimed by any means, but I think it's got some love in recent years, and I'm glad to see it because I like that match quite a bit.
That's also the Rumble match where Savage hits the elbow and then
oh yes, of course.
He goes for the pin like an idiot, stupid Randy Savage again.
And while by any means, it's not their best match at all, but Shawn and Taker in the casket match, I think is still a really fun piece of business.
98's a fun show.
Yeah, and there's that very memorable close. It's fair to say.
Feels, to me, that's the first show that feels Attitude Era.
That's with Tyson in the booth. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, I didn't really think of it that way.
94 is a show I want to bring because that's a really good show with the Owen thread throughout the whole show.
Good call. Yes.
And of course, the Luger and Brett double elimination was the first time.
Yes. That's an interesting one.
He kicked his leg out of his leg.
Bro, the promotion changed so much in the 90s. The transformation from start to finish. By contrast to the next decade, where it's like so much more like steady in that regard. Obviously, the stars changed, but the feel is like it's obviously the PG thing, I guess you could say. It's the visuals more in the 90s that changed to me. Though. Right. If you watch them, it's like it's nuts. Any other matches to share from the 90s Rumble events? Anything come to mind? I think we've pretty much covered them all, right? Of note.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's a good call actually from Joe. 93 had the first Michael Giannetti match, not as good as the sequence. So, the TV is the one that people remember, I think, most right from that time, 93. So, but yeah, good call nonetheless. All right, let's put a bow on the 90s. The best non-Rumble match of the 1990s Royal Rumble events. This is a very interesting question. I don't really know the obvious answer for this. It's really interesting. Bob, where do you go immediately, instinctively? Where do you go?
I guess it would be Diesel and Brett.
I think Rock Mankind.
Oh yeah.
I think the top three would be Diesel, Brett, Rock Mankind, and Rockers Orient Express because that Rockers Orient Express match is exceptional.
It's very good.
Yeah, I think as my actual personal enjoyment, I would take the Rockers match. That'd be my pick.
Yeah,
but what do you think, boys? What's your vote?
It's fine. It's a good match.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking that actually.
It's don't get me wrong. Rock Mankind is amazing, but if you said to me which one we're going to watch now, I'll take the tag. Okay, that's our best. Interesting time, right? The undercards were certainly not a focus in the 90s. The best Rumble match in the 90s is 92 without any debate or conversation, right? It goes without saying. All right, there you go. Let's move to the 2000s now. This is really interesting. Before we even get into this, the 2000s, we for each decade, I tell you the top three of that decade. The top three 2000s Rumbles are the top three Rumbles ever, event-wise.
Oh, wow.
Not match-wise, but overall events. The top three Royal Rumbles of the 2000s are the top three.
Let me guess.
Ever.
Can I guess?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. In no order, 2001, 2007, 2008.
You were 2 for 3. Let's get into it. In the 1 seed, top Royal Rumble event ever, 2001.
That's the second best Royal Rumble ever. And it is close to 92, but it is not number 1. Sorry, cage match.
What if I told you that Neve was cage match's top Rumble?
What?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Oh, no.
We'll get there. It is a famous Rumble, right? The Rock Austin deal is probably the most memorable moment from the Rumble match itself,
that Rumble
right?
match is amazing, dude.
Yeah,
it's so fucking good. It's the first.
Absolutely.
I saw 2000 live some with my parents. But the next year we got that shit. That's the Big Show coming out and JR losing his mind because Big Show been gone for months, 6 months.
Yeah.
The Big Show and the fans are going. Have you seen it?
Oh
when
yeah.
it comes out and they're losing, and everybody chokeslams the Rock to the table.
It's fucking awesome.
It's incredible.
This is one of the few, like when it comes to the big 4 deciding decades, this is the one that I'm actually most familiar with. The source material. This Rumble is like the amount of times I've seen this is ridiculous. It's classic, and the undercard's got stuff too. Right, we talked recently about the Dudleys Edge and Christian opener on Green Grappler Christian. We talked about that, right?
Match is real good.
Really good match, and the Jericho Benoit ladder match has like a 9.3.
That match is great.
Yeah, that match, and I knew it was great, but that's fucking super high rating. So this is, again, it's rated as the best Rumble event ever. I don't think either is surprised by that, right? Overall, I mean, the undercard added to it only helps.
It's got a argument to be the best Rumble event ever. Yes.
Yeah, we'll give Bobby a chance to speak on it when he returns. But while he's gone, we'll move on. In the 2 seed, we have 2007 Oracle. This is the highest rated Royal Rumble match on Cage Match.
Nope.
This is the one with Taker and Shawn, right? At the end.
Listen. I watched that Rumble live and it was great and it was awesome. And Taker and Shawn busted for 10, 12 minutes at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's not as good as the 01 Rumble. I don't think it's as good as the 08 Rumble. I don't think it's even as good as the 02 Rumble match.
Pop. Well, it's in the 1 seed, brother. Bobby,
It is not the best Rumble match ever.
Circle back.
Top 10. It's a top 10 Rumble match, but it's not number 1. I'm heated about this.
I can tell. We'll circle back to it.
Because if you watch that match, listen. If you watch that match,
yeah,
that match ain't. I mean, it's fun. Like, it's a good Rumble, but like, it's nothing special until the last 15 minutes.
Okay, we'll circle back to it. Bob, do you have anything on Rumble 2001 before we get back to that debate?
No, it's an excellent show. That's really one where they have multiple good matches on the undercard there. I like the ladder match is good, and Angle and Triple H is good, and the Rumble itself is, I think it gets aided by, just again going back to the star power, like just having so many top guys in there, and especially near the end, and they had Kane eliminate 12 people or whatever. Like they did a lot of good with it.
Bob, what is your response to the news that the 2007 Royal Rumble match is the highest Royal Rumble match in cage match history?
That seems like a bit of a reach, honestly. Like I think like the show itself is pretty good. There's a lot of good stuff on the show, but like I honestly like 2008 more, to be honest with you.
Well, you put you boys in a kind of uncomfortable position here, because I would like to state that Dave Meltzer agrees with you. He also preferred 2008. However, he also preferred 2021. I don't know, man. God bless him.
Sure.
He enjoys himself. That's what matters. 2007, I was surprised it was top. But the real note here is it's still not the show's top match. Because the show's top match is Cena and Umaga.
Oh, that's the best. That's the best Rumble undercard match of all time. So
that match is like all-time great, right? Yeah. Historic.
That's better than any of these fucking. And look, there's some in the 2010s that are outstanding, but that's the best one. That's the best one ever.
We'll lock that in later, folks. Hopefully, Oracle doesn't get heated again at the results of the. We'll see. I don't know, man. Bob might have like a dewdrop match out his back pocket. I don't know. There is also in 2007 you have the Hardys Eminem opener. It's fun that, like, have you noticed that kind of that low key trend of like the tag team kind of the hot tag match to kick off a Rumble? And we've brought that up a few times on these good Rumbles. It was an interesting thing that stood out to me. 2007 I think is a really good one. I'll admit I was surprised like you fellas were that it was the highest rated one. I thought it was pretty, maybe because it has like the big finishing stretch.
That's why it's Taker, Shawn, and it's cage match.
Yeah,
put 2 and 2 together. People don't watch wrestling. All
right, let's move on here to the third all-time, third for 2000s. Also, we have 2000 itself. Rumble match is a really good time. Oracle, you talked about this obviously in detail with your kind of memory of it, but the show is really about Cactus and Triple H, right? Which
Triple H and Cactus is probably my number 2, and as
yeah,
Joe said, it could be number 1. That might be better than Cena and Umaga.
that has an argument, honestly.
Yeah.
It does. It has a real argument. Also, you have the Hardys
Taz
Dudleys.
debut.
Yeah, their tables match, right?
Yeah, Hardys
Taz
Dudleys
debut.
is good, and Taz
Yep.
debut. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Bob,
That's a
anything
great
on?
show. Yeah.
Anything
Mayon's
on
boob.
2000?
No, it is an awesome show. Taz coming out is great. Triple H and Cactus is great. I think I like the Hell in a Cell a little bit more, but they're both just excellent.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I think I do.
Wow, I see. The Hell in a Cell is like a 3-star match to me.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Three
Bob,
and
you
a
might
half.
want to.
I mean, it's not bad. I don't want to, but it's just. I think the Rumble match is just.
Say that in the wrong area, Bob. You get arrested.
There's the stakes are bigger in the Hell in a Cell match.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing that Joe brings up, the fucking gashing like Triple H's calf is one of the gnarliest.
Oh yeah,
that's not. When I was a kid, we used to try to see it. We'd pause it and then, oh, look at that gash.
That match is fucking art, man. Bob, you need to rewatch that ASAP.
Yeah, I probably do.
That match is unbelievable. Listen to Oracle and I talking about Triple H match like this, bro. He's great in that stretch, obviously, but that match is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing match. All right. The bottom 3 for the 2000s. The worst Royal Rumble of the 2000s is the second worst Royal Rumble event in history, according to our friends at Cage Match. 2006. Now, the Rumble itself is not the issue here. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
I have to be honest about that Rumble because a couple of years ago I watched all the Rumble matches, not the whole every show, but the Rumble matches. It's a boring Rumble, and I love Ray.
That's fine, but I still don't think it's the lead issue here, right?
No.
In terms of being the second worst ever, I would describe it again as pretty middling. Oracle. The issue is the Kurt Mark Henry situation, right? Which closes the show. And that has a super low. And I think that's why this show is so low overall. Oracle, as someone who probably remembers the match, because I do not, was this bad? Kurt Angle, Mark Henry?
It ended the show and everybody was kind of like, Ray won the Rumble. We don't care anymore. I remember watching at the time. We were just kind of like, I was like,
strange choice.
Right? Living room, just okay. And then the Undertaker comes back, and it was just like,
isn't it 10 minutes or whatever too?
Yeah,
it's a strange choice to close the show because Mark
and both guys were great at the time. It's just they didn't have great chemistry and.
Well, also Mark's star power wasn't where it would become, where it would get 2 years later. Right? I mean, 2006. It's a puzzling choice. I'd forgotten that was the thing they closed with. Bob, are you surprised by 2006 being the second worst Rumble ever on Cage Match?
Ever? Yeah, probably. Because I think some of those early ones that we talked about are a lot worse.
For sure.
But this had I think Cena Edge was on this. This wasn't their best match. And then the Ray stuff. Some people just weren't with it, man. They felt it was just kind of a cheap thing, because he was so close to Eddie. And I mean,
Sure. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, we're Ray Jr. stands here, but it's the truth. I mean, that was a big, part of that story. Unfortunately, the Mania match is particularly
and it damaged Ray. It damaged Ray. He didn't really recover until he came back from injury the next year year or so.
Yeah,
it hurt him.
It's a shame. Now, this is amazing. So the worst Rumble of the 2000s is the second worst of all time. The second worst Rumble of the 2000s is still a top half Rumble, which is 2003. There's that says a lot about this decade. Now, again, folks, at the end of this show, we generally rank the decades. I'm sorry to kind of spoil where we're going here, but this decade was fucking prolific, man. 2003 is a top half Rumble. It still has a 7.05 rating. It does have the infamous Triple H Scott Steiner match, which bravo.
That's art, though.
It is. I think it adds. Good Rumble match. There's a famous Benoit Kurt match, which I'd love to get Oracle's take on in a moment. And even Brock and Show is fun, which Bobby was talking about recently. Let's get out of the way. Oracle, does this match get you very mad? This Benoit Kurt match?
Not as much as it used to. but
That's good.
it's fine. It's like 3 stars. It's fine.
Nice little free boy.
Yeah. When they had the plants to the standing ovation at the end.
I knew this was going to be a thing. So, like, when I was going through, I'd forgotten this match, and I saw it at like a 9, and I was like, "Oh, there's no way Oracle likes this match as much as this
Yeah.
side."
And I'm someone who likes Angle a ton, but like
that's a
didn't
very
know about the
famous
worst.
one in terms of like online debate. That's like a match gets brought up a lot, right? Fair to say. Bob, do you like it?
It's fine. There are other matches that they both had that year that I enjoy more. I think it's like Kurt's favorite match. He talks about it regularly on his podcast, which maybe shouldn't, but it's a whole nother thing. It is what it is, man. Like I think like the Rumble itself is cool because Brock wins and kind of gets his redemption or starts his redemption, and really the build to Mania 19 is excellent, so it sets the table for that. But yeah, I mean, I can kind of see why it's the second worst of the decade, even though it still is well regarded.
Where is Brock, by the way, right now? Like not like this very moment. But like, is he at the Rumble this weekend or next weekend?
He's on the poster. They haven't announced him, but like, unless he's either gonna probably come out and cost Lashley and set up a third match there, or he'll just show up in the Rumble, I guess, and do something with probably Gunther. They're gonna set that up.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Is Brock Lesnar Uncle Howdy?
I hope not. That would be a hell of a dunk on me.
It's just a ruse, or could they bring back the mixed match challenge with Brock and Alexa, and Bob's going to announce himself as a one show man? Keep your eye on it, folks. In at 3, just one above it all time is 2002. There's like honestly there's nothing wrong with this show. It's just a case of the decade being really strong, right? Like I think Rumble match is good. Yeah, me too.
Taker murders Maven.
Yeah. This is Flair and Vince too, right?
Yeah, fun.
Yeah, I think it's a really fun show. And to be clear, so does Cage
good.
match.
Not as good as the No Mercy match, but it's good.
Yeah.
I think it's a great show.
It's just the decade's really stacked, man. That's
the
honestly
Rumble's awesome because it's Austin and Triple H are like beating the hell out of all the undercard guys, and then they like brawl throughout it's really good stuff. Mr. Perfect comes back and like
great
fucking kills it in there. Yeah,
that was cool too because that was the late 90s. His performances were very spotty, right? It was cool that he was so great in that Rumble. Bob, is this just the case of the decade being so stacked? Because this feels like a good show.
Yeah, I think so. There's nothing wrong with this show. I mean, even if we all knew where the Rumble was going the whole time, like there's still enough on here, and even enough in the match itself for it to hold up.
Absolutely. Okay, other hits from the decade. I like the following Rumbles: 05, 04, and 08. Do we all agree those are very strong Rumble matches themselves?
It's a fucking awesome show.
Yeah,
that match is incredible.
Yeah.
That whole match from beginning to end is like a top 5 Rumble.
I was surprised it wasn't higher on Cage Match. But Edge and Jeff, what year did they have there? Is it 09? They have a singles match? Extended singles match? That one I seem to remember fondly. Other matches, Rumble or non-Rumble from the 2000s. What do you think, boys? Anything else come to mind before we pick our match of the decade? What do you think? Covered a lot of good ones, to be fair. Looking at the chat, see if anyone's got anything. I think we've hit most of them, right?
Yeah.
I think so. All right, before we wrap up the 2000s, Trey has resubscribed Prime. We've been for 7 months. Thank you so much, pal. And Kirby resubscribed also, now with us for 5 months, and said Max Moon should have won the Rumble in 93. Fair. Respect. Respect. I like it. All right. The best non-Rumble match of the 2000s. I know Oracle and I are probably going to go with Cena and Umaga. Cactus and Triple H deserves a mention, but Bob only give it 3 stars.
If people listen, those are my top 2.
Yeah, either
honestly, on another day, I might put the other one in 1. You know what I mean? Like it's like I'm not going to argue. If you know.
Bob, Cena, Umaga, any protest, or are you in on this?
No, that's fine.
All right. So Cena Umaga takes the best non-Rumble match, and then the best Rumble match. Oracle. I'll let you plant you. Okay. 0-1. Bob?
Yeah, that's fine.
You sure, Bob?
Mm-hmm.
You sure you don't want to make a heated debate for 2008 or 2007 while we're here?
08 is not crazy. 07 is, I don't even think that's a good rumble. It's a really good rumble, but the best of all time is just not the case.
We should do a grin along for that rumble now, because now I'm like, my mind is like trying to piece together what the rest of the match is, why it's so popular on there. I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah, we can't forget about it because nothing happens until the last.
I am really trying to remember. Anyway, okay, we'll go with 2001 because I think we all actually like agree that one rules, right? That's pretty epic. Yeah. So just to kind of, again, sorry folks, kind of spoiling where we're going to end up here, but this decade has 7 of Cage Match's top 10 Rumble shows, with just 1 in the bottom 15. So, you know, in terms of decades, this is where they really nailed it. The formula for
Rumble was
Rumble
awesome, man. When I was a kid, and that's when I was, I think I was lucky to grow up in that decade, man. Because at least that's the one thing I'm lucky about. Because those Rumbles were fucking Because I think a lot of the Manias were really good when I was a kid too. But
the Rumble match itself, they got right, and they also beefed the undercards up in this decade a lot, right? So really strong decade for the Rumble. Again, kind of speaks for itself with the things we just got through. But nonetheless, we will talk about the 2010s here. Top 3 Royal Rumble events of the 2010s. Number 1 in the 6 all-time spot, we have 2016. Probably most famous for the revival of AJ Styles.
I was there live for that. Big
pop. Issue, good Rumble match. AJ Styles, very cool. Triple H won this match. It was 2016.
Yeah, that was a problem. That pissed me off.
It's not great.
I mean, everybody knew it was going to happen, but it still sucked,
It sucked, yeah. And he did like the suck it thing, and like
the match was incredible. The match was great.
Yeah, really strong.
I was there live, and I'm biased for how good the match was, but like the finish was just such a fucking deflator, man.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. I think the most probably memorable undercard match is the Ambrose Owens deal, right? They have last man standing.
Last man standing.
Very strong match. So, Bob, anything on 2016?
2016.
I must admit, like Oracle, you were there, but I was surprised this was the top one of the decade. I don't know. It didn't
a little bit. Yeah, I would think one of the. I would think the men's 18 or the men's 17 might actually get the nod there.
That's a good point. Actually, I should note that in terms of overall the actual Rumble match itself, I think the results. Yeah. To be clear, 2018 is higher rated as a Rumble match. This is event overall. I shouldn't.
Okay.
My apologies. Okay. Yeah, because 2018 was the match I definitely feel was better. I don't know. 2016 as a positive recollection from most people, it seems. This might be why it's above 2018 overall, the undercard. We'll get to that.
The undercard of 19, other than that Ryan AJ match, partly everything else on that undercard was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is worth noting as Willie gets to, and we'll obviously talk about this in a second, but 2016 might have a better rating also because it's like a bounce back from a couple catastrophes at the Rumble.
2013 had, we'll get to it, but Rock's Punk was the main event, which was a great match, honestly.
I like it a lot.
But the finish was terrible.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Just Cena was a foregone conclusion to win and so on. But we'll get to it.
Okay, so 2016 is the Rumble of the decade. Rumble show of the decade, that is. 2018, which has the best Rumble match of the decade, according to Cage Match.
Both matches are like classics at this point.
Yeah.
This is 10th all time. We have the great men's Rumble with Shinsuke, and I think the thing I remember most from this match is it actually went kind of viral recently. That awesome like generational standoff thing they do.
Ray comes back. I've never popped bigger in my life than when Ray came back in that match.
The way that they like position Ray between them is so awesome. It's such a great moment. Great visual. And then of course the show closes with the Women's Rumble, the very first one. Asuka gets the win, which was a big hit. Ronda debuts. There is the very, very funny Brock Braun situation in their match with Kane for some reason.
Yeah.
Not a lot in between the two Rumble matches, but it was the first Rumble with 2 Rumble matches, and that kind of makes it, that obviously makes it historic. The fact we like both Rumble matches.
The Women's Rumble, amazing.
Yeah, it's very good.
I thought this would have been the top one for the decade, I have to say, as a show overall, even with the weak undercard. 2 Rumble matches, and we like both of them.
Still might be my favorite of the decade, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Bob, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised about that too, because like both those rumbles are good. Like the women's ones have been hit and miss, and obviously the men's ones historically been hit and miss, but the women's ones is more magnified because there's only been a small handful of them. But yeah, to have two that you like, and I don't remember that show. I mean, it probably was 5 hours or whatever, but I don't remember it being 5 hours. So I think they were able to kind of cut some of the undercard stuff a little bit, which. And I think the Usos faced Shelton and Gable on that show, which was fun.
Yeah, good match. Is this the only Rumble where both women's and men's Rumble matches are like big time hits? Since we've been doing this, is this the only one?
Yeah,
I would say so.
Small sample size, but it feels like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, what an interesting time! Asuka and Shinsuke winning the Rumbles, huh?
Yeah,
like a cool thing that you kind of look back at weirdly because of how things panned out, especially on one side of that coin.
McMahon on commentary in the Women's Rumble.
Yeah, and then they had Charlotte and Alexa were like sitting on it. Remember they had like sitting on either side.
Of course, Ronda's debut at the end.
Yeah, there was a lot here. Fond memories of this one. All right, in at 3, just 2 spots further back overall. We have 2019. A lot of good stuff here on the show. Surrounding the card. Yeah,
Asuka and Becky good, but the crowd was just like worn out.
Absolutely. Asuka and Becky is like, I think, is tremendous. Ronda and Sasha's really strong. Brock and Finn is a good time.
That match is great. Yeah.
Would you say the reason this is below the others is because the Rumble matches themselves are, while they have their strengths, they're not as good as the ones we've just talked about? I think would be fair to say.
I think so.
The women's match was executed perfectly in the end.
Yeah.
The men's match is not very good at all. Like it's bad.
Is it so Seth wins that one, right?
Uh-huh. And it's not even because Seth wins, and I don't know. But like the match is not very good.
It closes the show.
The crowd was just exhausted. Like,
am I right in
saying that Nia comes in and gets like six?
Yes, yeah. Nia, yeah. This is the Nia Rumble.
Oh yeah.
Seth gets rid of Braun last, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, and this show's like 5.5 hours.
It's really difficult, this stuff, because like I think this should definitely be in the top 10 in terms of overall quality on the show. But because of things like that, how fucking long the show was, and like some of the things that came with these shows, I think I don't know. Still a good Rumble, absolutely. All right. Let's look at the bottom 3 here for the 2010s. No prizes for guessing the worst one, I think it's fair to say. 2015 is the 3rd bottom Rumble of all time, but more specifically, it is, I believe I'm going to make sure of this here. Yes, it is the lowest rated Rumble match itself with a 1.77, beating out Bobby's fiasco in 2022. Probably the higher.
They tweeted it out the other day, like, remember when The Rock came to help Roman Reigns win the Rumble? I'm like, well, why would you bring that up?
Probably the height of like WWE's inability to read a room, right? Like just in every which way, the Bryan element of it, the Rock having to stand there with that look on his face as they booed.
So mad.
Especially because they screwed it up the year before and then just did it again.
This is, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the Kane Big Show thing, right? Where it's like they got rid of everyone that you like to try and force you to hear Roman. Man, we all like him, but this is so bad. Awful.
Then the next couple of years, they just did things to get to have the winner cheered by eliminating Roman at the end.
Yes. It is worth noting this is the 3rd worst Rumble of all time in terms of show, and it features like one of the most popular non-Rumble matches that the Rumble's ever hosted with the triple threat of Seth, Brock, and Cena. Yeah. This match is like that's a beloved match, and it's still the 3rd worst fucking show they did at the Rumble. Like that Rumble is every bit as bad as history states, right? I mean, it's just an absolute mess, a complete mess in every which way. Anything else on 2015? It's Bob. Is there any pride in the fact that it's not quite, your one's not quite the worst one because of this?
No, not really.
Yeah, fair. I respect that. I would respect it more if you said yes, absolutely, get fucked. 2015. Was this in Philly?
Yeah.
God bless, man. Huh. Amazing. All right. The 2nd worst Rumble of the 2010s. We have 2012, which is the 5th worst of all time. This is just appears to be kind of like nothing to me.
That show has Jericho and Sheamus killing it in the last like stretch.
Yeah,
in the Rumble match, but the match itself is like not very good at all.
I don't remember this
I think
one
it's the
well
one
at
where
all.
Foley comes back and like has
Mhm.
like a bit with Hornswoggle or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I
Is
think
this the one with
Booker's
Punk
in
and
it.
Dolph have that really like overbooked match? There's like 101 Johnny Ace interferences and stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's Punk and Dolph.
Sorry, what did I say? My bad. I meant Punk and Dolph.
Cena,
My apologies.
yeah.
My apologies. Yeah, Punk and Dolph for the
Punk,
title. Yeah.
Punk and Dolph. Cena faces Kane in a Embrace the Hate match.
Oh no, that's unfortunate.
Mhm.
Okay. Bob, are you surprised to see this one in the bottom 5 all time, 2012?
No, not at all. I mean, the Rumble itself, like, it was okay. I guess they had like I think Michael Cole was in it for some reason because they were doing that whole thing too. Like Sheamus winning, I remember it's like okay, they're trying to make a guy. That's cool.
See,
Didn't really work out for him.
I'm a
immediately,
Sheamus
but-
fan, so
Was Sheamus winning a rib?
maybe, but Sheamus fucking rules.
Yeah.
And I will block Don't Have an At if he doesn't think otherwise. But no, not really. But
What a time.
yeah, that show sucked. It really wasn't a good show. The Sheamus Jericho stuff at the end was great, but there you go. He goes, "I love Sheamus, but what the fuck?" Yeah, it was bizarre. I'm with you there. There was no star power in the match, which was the main reason.
Yep.
That really hurt. I mean, they had like the whole commentary team made comedy spots in the match. It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah. The Greatest Royal Rumble does not count unless I'm discussing Roderick Strong, in which case it counts.
No, I'm not counting that shit.
It does not count. Okay.
I actually don't hate that match, but no, I'm not counting it. That's not the Royal Rumble.
No.
It genuinely doesn't feel like it should be counted in this. Like, not even doing like a bit. Or
Right, yeah. So
performative.
it doesn't feel like, it's
yeah.
not,
I think it's listed separately if you look it up. It's not under Royal Rumble. It's its own thing. So
not the same thing.
There you go, folks. Bob has got the official ruling on this. Okay, the third worst Rumble of the 2010s is 2014. This is 3 spots up overall. CM Punk's last show, right? Famously. Brian does it again with Bray. This one's even better. This one is like legitimately great.
That match is great.
What a freak of nature that fella is. To be fair, this version of Bray was a lot more like he's a lot easier to have a good match with him than the one that he got later. You know, and this match, he had more good matches around this one than he did later on. But this match is especially great.
And that Rumble match is so terrible. Poor Ray comes out at 30 and they boo him. It's like, first time Rey Mysterio's ever been booed that much.
What a mess, man.
Yeah,
this run of Rumbles they had here, Bobby. What the fuck?
Well, this one, like, they almost did everything right. Like, they got the star power. They didn't have the guy that everyone wanted to see win, which is a big part of it. And I mean, Batista's run was good too. Like, that's the thing people forget. But like, he was just in such a shitty position. Like,
yeah, just when you get Rey Mysterio booed like this, you're like, you're just so cooked, man. It's finished, like it's over. It's not a lot of fond memories here. Oracle, I want to give you a chance to about 2013 a little more because I did list another matches for Decade Rock Punk because I do really, really like that match.
That's great. I'm not gonna lie, the finish is unbelievably bad though.
Yeah,
it is so fucking terrible.
Any because I know you kind of touched any other memories of that Rumble that show itself.
The Rumble match actually not bad. It's just Cena was a foregone conclusion. Everybody knew he was going to win. I don't even remember the undercard much. Let me do this. Give me a moment to do this, and you're not wrong that it's bad, but I actually really enjoy the 2011 Rumble until it goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. I actually think it's a really good Rumble until it goes and goes and goes and goes. And Cena and Hornswoggle are in there with like a 10-minute segment where they're like dominating the match, and it goes and goes and goes. If it was a 30-man Rumble, I think it would be not like an all-time great or anything, but I think it would be looked at a little bit more fondly.
Do you think they'll ever return to that concept for Rumble? Well, I know again they did the Greatest Royal Rumble. That was a different thing. Like for the main show, do you think they'll ever go beyond 30 again?
I hope not.
I don't think so.
I don't think they will.
Del Rio Big Show was good. Last man standing.
Okay. Other matches from the 2010s. Edge and Dolph have like a really fun opener in 2011, right?
Mhm.
I think that was that show.
Yeah. Mhm.
2017 has Owens and Reigns, one of now about to be free at the Royal Rumble, which is kind of crazy to think about. And AJ Cena is probably the most famous one, right? In terms of matches
Yeah.
we didn't.
2017 is
Yeah.
a great show. Yeah.
Yeah.
As they pointed out in the chat, Santino was incredibly over at the end of the 2011 Rumble to a ridiculous degree.
It was.
Yeah.
Same for the 2012 Chamber the next year when he
That is crazy. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a crazy moment because they actually like bite on that fully, right? That's a wild moment.
Now he's the authority figure for Impact Wrestling.
He is.
Amazing. What an amazing existence we have, folks. Feels like 2017 should probably like
That's
to
a great
me
show.
anyway.
That
Yeah.
should be
I think
put
so.
over higher end, but
Okay. Best match of the decade.
Roman and KO is awesome on that show too.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very likely that Roman and KO are going to go 3 for 3 in terms of like Raw matches at the Royal Rumble. Right? I'll be very surprised if next week's one isn't a hit too. So they're probably going to go 3 for 3, which has to be the first time that's happened, right?
Yeah,
There's no way. Yeah. Okay. The best non-Rumble match at 2010's Royal Rumble. I would immediately go with the one we just mentioned, which is AJ and Cena. But I'm open to conversation on this. What do we think, boys? Is there any alternatives?
AJ Cena and the Brock Triple Threat from 15 are probably the two best. Some
Yeah,
people,
those are my
there are
two.
actually a few people who don't like the Brock Triple Threat. I love that match.
Yeah, it's cool.
You
Nice
don't
little
like
match.
it as much.
It's fun. I'm not, you know me with Triple Threat. It's like a mental block for me on these matches. I find them to be
I
very
never
like
did that, so it holds up for me, I guess.
Yeah.
With the Brock deal getting taken out and then coming back.
Yeah.
I also didn't see it live, which is a big part of it. I have no like memory of watching it, you know.
Decided to.
That's part of it for me. I don't know. We can vote though. I got AJ Cena. Bob, what you voting for?
I would vote that.
Yeah, we can do it. You know, it's fine.
Right.
It's a great match.
Thanks, fellas. I appreciate it.
No, I mean I would honestly say that's my number one. AJ Cena is.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd give the Brock Triple Threat a shot. You know.
No, fair. It's a beloved match. It's to be clear, it's really good. It never like reaches like historic levels of great for me. Like again, I watched it. Sometimes when you watch a match after everyone's talked about it that way, it can be hard to do
Right.
so. All right, the best Rumble match of the decade. I think in our conversation, I think personally the leader is 2018, the men's one, with Shinsuke and the little kind of generational standoff we referenced earlier. That would be my pick. Bob, your favorite Rumble match of the 2010s?
Favorite Rumble match of the 2010s. Yeah, it probably is also 2018, just because I do love the ending, and Shinsuke winning just kind of was this thing that I know it went the way it did, but like it represented like this is maybe going to be something different. Yeah. So that was fun.
No, I agree. I mean, you can't rate it in hindsight, right? Like that was what that feeling was. It was like, holy shit, this is a genuine sign of progression. Yeah. There you go. Oracle, favorite Rumble match of the 2010s?
I might actually say the 2018 women's, but yeah, 2018 men's is
I think it's fair to say 2018 is our favorite Rumble of the 2010s overall.
Yeah,
right?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay, this conclude here, folks. Some big questions to end. Usually we would close with rank the decades. We'll do that first, and we'll do something else last, because I think in this case the number one seed is clearly the 2000s, right? I mean, it's not even close. The 2000s win handily. There's only one Rumble in 2000s that has less than like a fucking 7 on gauge match. Like it's clearly number one. What is number 2, Bobby? Is it 2010s or 90s?
Yeah, I think it's 2010s and 90s is third.
I would agree, because even though 2010s has like crazy lows, I think the highs are higher.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, 92.
Yeah, it's I want to lean 90s only because of the classic sort of WWF.
I
think if we're really looking at it on merit, it might be the 2010s, but those middle 2010s were just bad. They were.
What you said there, I think is important. On merit, I think there's probably better matches overall in the 2010s. Overall, if you did a list.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we should take a stand on this, boys. I don't think the 2010s deserve to be above the 90s. The 90s are like, they're at least like average. There are matches in the 2010s that are like fucking
I know there's that 3 or 4 shows in the 2010s that are just dreadful.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Bobby, do you have an issue with this? Even though I think you're kind of right, I don't know.
No, that's fine.
2010s was so often at odds with their own audience, man. It's like
That's true.
And in fairness, this isn't just us doing like the kind of rose tinted glass thing, because a lot of Survivor Series, I think we agreed 2010s were the best, right? I think so. It happens. Okay, now the best Royal Rumble event ever. This is an interesting one.
Event overall?
Yeah. The overall event, the best Royal Rumble ever. What do you think? Just quickly while we think about this one, don't have an answer. No one talks about it, but people really like the 2010 Rumble.
That match is great.
Good Rumble.
Well, it's very good. The Shawn stuff with his overacting, I don't care for at all. But CM Punk does
he's Austin.
He's like preaching in the middle of the ring during his faded society, and it's incredible.
Yeah, that's a
01 is probably the best Rumble overall for me.
Bob?
Yeah, I think as far as best event goes, it probably would be 2001.
Best blend of undercard and great Rumble match, right?
Exactly.
I agree, boys. Absolutely. And we are, unless I'm mistaken, I think that puts us on board with the cage match. Yes, it does. Yeah, that was what they had. So that makes sense. Top non-Rumble match ever hosted at the Royal Rumble. We doing Umaga Cena? That's my pick, personally.
Yeah,
probably what I would say.
Yeah, but I actually think that's I think that's in the list of like best WWF title matches ever, just in general. That match is that's a masterpiece, man. Like that's an incredible match. Top Rumble match ever, Oracle. I think 92. Your stance is firm on this, right? 92. I personally think we should go with 92. I think that's the one that has the most. Now, if you did a top 10, the 2000s probably has the rest of the list. Otherwise,
almost certainly.
But number one,
the 18 men, women's, I think would probably fit in top 10 for me. Both of those, and then everything else would be 2000s, and then 92 probably.
Yeah, 92 is very special, and
I could see 16 make. That might have to go 11 because Triple H won, but I was there live. I'm biased for it, but
I get it. The crowd likes it.
Yeah.
Part of the reason 92 is so special also is because it's like the singular great one of the decade. It's the definitive Rumble of that.
And it creates the aura. It creates the
absolutely.
It was the beginning of the Rumble being. It was a critical.
It's the definitive one, right?
It's like the Michael Jordan or the
Yeah, like every great Rumble is in some way trying to recapture that, right? In its own way. Out of curiosity, good question from Reese before we wrap up. Out of curiosity, is there a standout Rumble type match outside of WWE from any company? That's interesting.
I think so.
I'm not really well versed enough, honestly, in the wrestling world to give you a good answer.
I've seen some fun indie Rumbles over the years live, but in terms of major companies, I can't really think of anything. I mean, World War III was terrible,
Sure was, yeah.
I liked the one that AEW did when they had the 2 rings, but they just need to learn how to produce it a little better.
The Rampage one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. There was one casino ladder.
Aztec Warfare. I'm not sure if I've ever seen one, but I know that was highly playing for a few years there.
There's one casino ladder match, the one when Hangman comes back, that is like really fucking good. I remember us talking about the concept being like, holy shit, they might have something with this, and then I don't think they've ever got it right again. Casino ladder match. I don't know, man. It's hard. Like part of the reason it's hard is because it's so identified with this product and this promotion. It's very hard to get right, I think, elsewhere. But nonetheless, we're on the road to the Rumble. We're 6 days away, and we're gonna have some more coverage on the way for you folks. Tuesday night, we're gonna do a preview for the pay-per-view. Right, we're gonna let Raw go, and then we'll do that on Tuesday, and then Friday. You should be able to look forward to, folks. We're pretty confident we're gonna be able to bring you Grin Game Night, Royal Rumble edition. Myself, Bobby, and Confirmed Shoot versus the famed Young Lions. And show him his boss around here, Bob. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And I'm sure if the show's good, we might be back here like this time next week to review the show.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll see how it goes. Oracle, any final thoughts? Anything to plug? Anything to promote?
I'll be here Tuesday to preview the show. I might not be here. I probably won't be here to review the show. I may have to.
Yeah.
Dylan's here this week, so in fact, he's probably waiting for me to go to the store.
Fair.
We were intending to go to the store earlier, but then we both slept, and I was like, "Oh, it's 12:45. I better get up for this podcast." But anyways, and we'll probably have to take him back to my folks, and depending on how the Cowboys game goes, I might be watching the Cowboys game with my dad next weekend.
There you go.
If things go well. So, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'll definitely be here Tuesday. I'm sure I'll be texting Joe and DMing Bobby about the Rumble, the Rumble event itself. Hopefully, it's good things and not bad things.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one because it's in theory it's Triple H's first Rumble, right? In theory.
Yeah, in theory.
We'll see if anyone shows up and puts their fingerprints on it.
I'm not too worried about it this year. I'd be more worried about
the future beyond
once
this year.
the sale goes through and stuff like that. I actually think we're going to see most of the same of what we've been seeing.
Yeah.
Until the sale goes through, then I think there's going to be some.
It's going to be wild when fucking, like Mickey Mouse runs in the Rumble at 30. It's going to be crazy. Bobby, anything to close it, mate?
No, I don't think so. Like I said at the beginning, excited for the Rumble. It's always a enjoyable time for the most part, as long as we can avoid last year. But yeah, we'll be back for a couple things this week. Make sure you watch Fleet Week later today, if you're into that sort of thing. And that's it.
Absolutely. We'll be back. Myself and the Young Lions will be on in just over 2 hours, 5 Eastern, for Fleet Week. I know football on, but action Andretti match reviews can't wait any longer, brother. You know what I mean? So we'll see you there for that. Myself and the Young Lions tomorrow. I'll do all the rest of the shit later on. All right. We hope you enjoyed this, folks. Keep grinning. Stay tuned for a very fun week of shows. In the meantime, enjoy this outro. Oh, hell.